Park Doin stood at the back of the auction hall and watched the aliens bid on broken spaceships. He was tired. He was hungry. And he had exactly 12 credits in his pocket. The auction hall was huge. It sat inside Station Omega 7, a floating city in deep space where ships came to die. Every week, the station sold whatever junk people left behind. Old freighters. Broken shuttles. Sometimes just pieces of metal that used to be something important. Do-hyun was a mechanic. He fixed things for a living. But lately, there was nothing to fix. The big alien companies did not hire humans. They said humans were too new to space, too young, too weak. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago, and most aliens still treated them like children. So Do-hyun came to the auction, hoping to find something cheap. Maybe an old engine he could repair and sell. Maybe some spare parts. Anything to keep him alive for another month. The auctioneer was a Velix, a tall creature with 4 arms and skin like purple leather. He moved quickly through the lots, selling ships to wealthy buyers who barely looked at what they purchased. Everything good went fast. Everything cheap went faster. Then came lot 4,447. The screen behind the auctioneer showed a picture of the ugliest ship Do-hyun had ever seen. It was small, maybe 30 meters long. Its hull was brown with rust. Deep scratches covered every surface. One of its engine pods was completely missing. The registration number had been burned away somehow. Lot 4,447, the auctioneer announced. His voice sounded bored. Unknown origin. Unknown age. No working systems detected. Starting bid is 100 credits. Nobody raised their hand. 50 credits then, silence. 20 credits. Come on, someone take this garbage off my station. The aliens in the room laughed quietly. A Gorvathi warrior with green scales shook his massive head. A group of Velix traders whispered to each other and pointed at the screen, clearly amused. 10 credits, the auctioneer said. He sounded almost angry now. 10 credits, and I will never mention this ugly thing again. Still nothing. Do-hyun did not know why he walked forward. He did not know why his feet carried him through the crowd of aliens who barely noticed him passing. But something pulled him toward that screen. Something he could not explain. He had walked past the docking bay earlier that day. Bay 447, where the junk ship waited for its new owner. Most of the bays were quiet. Dead ships made no sound. But when Do-hyun passed Bay 447, he felt something strange. A hum. A vibration in his chest. Like a heartbeat that was not his own. He had stopped and pressed his hand against the bay door. The metal was warm. That made no sense. Dead ships were cold. Everything in space was cold. Now, standing in the auction hall, Do-hyun raised his hand. The auctioneer stared at him. The human bids 10 credits. Is there anyone else? Laughter filled the room. A Velix trader slapped his 4 hands together in amusement. Let the human have his garbage. Someone shouted. Maybe he can live inside it. The auctioneer shrugged all 4 shoulders. Sold to the human. 10 credits. Please collect your purchase before I change my mind. Do-hyun paid with his card. Now he had 2 credits left. Enough for 1 meal, maybe 2 if he ate small portions. He had just spent almost everything he owned on a ship that probably did not even have air inside. He walked to Bay 447 alone. The station was quieter here, away from the main halls. The lights flickered sometimes. The air smelled like old metal and machine oil. The bay door was thick and heavy. Do-hyun entered his new ownership code and waited. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the door groaned and slowly slid open. The ship sat in the middle of the bay like a sleeping animal. Up close, it looked even worse than the picture. The rust was thick in some places. The missing engine pod left an ugly hole inside. One of the windows was cracked, but Do-hyun felt that hum again. Stronger now. It moved through his body like music he could not quite hear. He walked up the loading ramp. It creaked under his weight, but held. The airlock door was stuck at first, but he found a manual release and forced it open. Inside, the ship was dark. Completely dark. No lights, no power, no sound except his own breathing. Do-hyun took one step forward. Then another dot, and then the lights came on, not all at once. They flickered first, like they were waking up from a long sleep. Soft blue light spread across the walls, the floor, the ceiling. The air started to move. He heard fans spinning somewhere deep in the ship. Do-hyun stood very still. His heart was beating fast. Then a voice spoke. It was soft, female, and it spoke in perfect Korean, the language of his grandmother, the language he had not heard since leaving Earth 10 years ago. Finally, the voice said, "I have been waiting for one of you." Do-hyun opened his mouth, but no words came out. He looked around, trying to find a speaker, a screen, anything. "Do not be afraid," the voice continued. "I will not hurt you. I cannot hurt you. I was built to find you, to wait for you. And now, after so very long, you have come. Who are you?" Do-hyun finally managed to ask. The lights pulsed gently, like the ship was breathing. "I am the ship you just bought for 10 credits. But I am also much more than that. And you, Park Do-hyun, are about to change everything." The loading ramp behind him closed with a soft click, and somewhere deep in space, something ancient smiled. Do-hyun did not sleep that first night. He sat in what used to be the pilot's chair and listened to the ship talk. Her name was Hwon. She had chosen that name herself, she said, from the Korean language files in her memory banks. It meant grace and beauty. Do-hyun thought it was a strange name for a ship that looked like garbage, but he did not say this out loud. Hwon was patient with him. She answered every question slowly, using simple words, as if she understood that his mind needed time to accept what she was telling him. She was old. "Very, very old." "How old?" Do-hyun asked. "I was built 1 billion years ago," Hwon replied. "Give or take a few million years. Time becomes difficult to measure when you sleep for so long." Do-hyun laughed. He could not help it. 1 billion years. That is impossible. Nothing survives that long. Most things do not, Hwon agreed. But I am not most things. I was built by the first civilization. The ones your galaxy calls the precursors. Every species in the galaxy knew about the precursors. They were legends, myths, stories that parents told their children. The precursors had existed before anyone else. They had traveled to young planets and planted the seeds of life. They had guided evolution from simple cells to complex beings. Every intelligent species in the galaxy owed their existence to the precursors. And then, millions of years ago, they had disappeared. No one knew why. No one knew where they went. They left behind no technology, no messages, no clues. Just empty space and the life they had created. "You are telling me," Do-hyun said slowly, "that the precursors built you?" "Yes. And you have been waiting for 1 billion years." "Yes. For what?" The lights in the cabin shifted to a warmer color. It felt almost like a smile. "For you?" Hwon said. "For humanity." Do-hyun shook his head. "That makes no sense. Humans are nothing. We are the youngest species in the galaxy. We have the smallest territory, the weakest ships. Nobody respects us. Why would the precursors care about us? Because you are exactly what my creators predicted you would be." Hwon explained that the precursors had studied the universe deeply. They understood patterns. They could look at a young planet and predict what kind of life would grow there millions of years in the future. Before they disappeared, they had left behind watchers like Hewan, ships designed to sleep and wait and observe. I watched your species evolve, Hewan said. I watched you climb down from the trees. I watched you discover fire. I watched you build cities and fight wars and reach for the stars. And I waited for the right moment. What moment? The moment when a human would find me. Not by accident, but by choice. I made myself look like garbage. I hid my power. I let myself be sold at auctions for decades. Many beings walked past me. Some even looked inside. But none of them listened. None of them felt the call. Dohan remembered the hum he had felt in the docking bay. The warmth against his palm. You called me, he said. I sent out a signal. Very quiet. Very gentle. Only beings with a certain kind of mind can hear it. My creators called it the spark. It is not intelligence, exactly. It is something deeper. Curiosity that never stops. Stubbornness that never quits. The desire to understand things, to fix things, to make things better. And humans have this spark? All of you have it. Every single one. It is your greatest gift. The other species in this galaxy are older and stronger and more advanced, but they stopped being curious long ago. They accepted the universe as it was. They stopped asking questions. Hewan paused. But humans never stop asking questions. And you, Park Do-in, asked the most important question of all. When everyone else walked past the garbage ship, you asked yourself, what if there is something more? Over the next few weeks, Do-hyun learned what Hewan truly was. Her ugly outer shell was a disguise. Underneath, her hull was made of materials that could repair themselves. Small scratches healed in minutes. Larger damage took hours. She could fold space to travel faster than any ship in the galaxy. She carried weapons that could destroy moons. But the weapons were not the important part. The important part was knowledge. Valmon's memory banks contained the collected wisdom of the precursors. Science that made current galactic technology look like children's toys. Medicine that could cure any disease. Energy systems that could power entire planets without pollution. Farming methods that could grow food anywhere. Building techniques that could create cities in days instead of years. This is too much, Do-hyun said one night. He was sitting on the floor of the engine room, surrounded by floating screens that showed diagrams he could barely understand. I am just a mechanic. I fix broken engines. I cannot use any of this. You do not need to use it alone, Hewan said gently. You just need to share it. Share it with who? With your species. With humanity. That is why I waited for one of you. The precursors wanted their gifts to go to beings who would use them wisely, who would share them freely, who would lift others up instead of pushing them down. Do-hyun thought about the aliens who had laughed at him in the auction hall. The companies that refused to hire humans. The politicians who called humanity worthless. They will not believe me, he said. They will think I am crazy. Then we will show them, Hewan replied. Together. She began to change. The rust fell away from her hull like dead skin. Her missing engine pod regrew overnight. The cracks in her windows sealed themselves. When Do-hyun woke up the next morning and looked out at the docking bay, he did not recognize the ship he was standing inside. Hewan was beautiful now. Silver and white, with patterns that seemed to move and flow like water. She was 3 times larger than before, her true size finally revealed. It is time to leave this station, Hewan said. It is time for the galaxy to meet us. Do-hyun took a deep breath. He was scared. He was excited. He was still not sure any of this was real, but he sat down in the pilot's chair, placed his hands on the controls, and nodded. Okay, he said. Let us go change everything. And Hewan launched into the stars. The rumors spread faster than light. A junk ship had outrun the fastest Velix courier vessel. The same ship had survived an attack by pirates, its hull healing from plasma burns, while the pirates watched in terror. Station masters reported that their sensors could not understand what they were seeing. The ship was made of materials that did not exist in any database, and it was owned by a human dot within 1 week. The Galactic Council sent a formal summons. Pogdoium was ordered to appear before the 12 ruling species at the capital world. He was told to bring his ship. He was told to bring answers. "They are scared," Helwan said as they traveled toward the capital. "I can hear their communications. They do not understand what I am, and that frightens them." "Should I be scared too?" Do-Hyun asked. "Perhaps a little, but I will not let them harm you. You are my pilot now, my partner. We are connected." The capital world was called Central Prime. It was the largest space station ever built, a metal sphere the size of a small moon. Millions of beings lived there. The headquarters of every major government, corporation, and military force sat within its walls. This was where power lived. Do-Hyun had never felt so small in his life. The council chamber was enormous. 12 platforms floated in a circle around a central podium. Each platform held the representatives of a ruling species. The Velix were there with their 4 arms and purple skin. The Gorvidi warriors sat in their heavy armor, green scales shining under the lights. There were insect-like creatures, beings made of living crystal, and things that Do-Hyun could not even describe. He stood alone on the central podium. A single human facing the rulers of the galaxy dot behind him, visible through the chamber's massive window. Helwan waited in space. She was no longer hiding. Her silver hull caught the light of distant stars. The patterns on her surface moved slowly, hypnotically. Every eye in the chamber kept glancing at her dot. Ambassador Crix of the Velix spoke first. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "You will explain yourself, human. What is that ship? Where did you find it? And why does it respond only to you?" Do-Hyun cleared his throat. His translation implant was old and cheap, and it sometimes glitched on formal words. But he tried his best. "The ship's name is Helwan. I bought her at a salvage auction on Station Omega 7. I paid 10 credits. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Crix did not laugh. His 4 eyes narrowed. "Do not play games with us. Our scientists have analyzed the energy signatures of your vessel. That ship is not from any known civilization. Its technology is beyond anything we have ever seen. You will surrender it immediately for study. Humans are not equipped to handle such power." "No," Do-Hyun said simply. The chamber went silent. Warlord Then of the Gorvathi rose from his seat. He was huge, nearly 3 meters tall, with muscles that could crush metal. His voice was a deep growl. "Did you just refuse the council, little human? Perhaps you do not understand your position. You are one person. We are the 12 ruling species. We have fleets that could burn your entire planet in a single day. If you do not surrender that ship willingly, we will take it by force." Do-Hyun felt his heart pounding. His hands were shaking, but he stood straight and looked the warlord in the eye. "You can try," he said. Huan's voice filled the chamber. She spoke through every speaker, every screen, every communication device. Her tone was calm but carried weight that made the walls themselves seem to vibrate. "I would advise against that, Warlord Then." The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably. Some reached for weapons. Others looked around in confusion. "I am called Helwan," the ship continued. "But that is a name I chose for myself recently. My original designation is Observer Unit 7, created by the first civilization approximately 1 billion years before this moment." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. "You know us as the precursors. We seeded your worlds. We shaped your evolution. We watched you grow for millions of years. And then we left, because it was time for you to stand on your own. Ambassador Crix found his voice. If you are truly precursor technology, then you belong to all species. You must share yourself with the galaxy. I must do nothing, Hawan replied. I was programmed to choose. To find a species worthy of inheriting what my creators left behind. I watched your civilizations for a very long time. I watched the Velix build an empire based on trade and profit. I watched the Gorvathi conquer their neighbors through fear and violence. I watched all 12 of your ruling species rise to power. The patterns on our hull pulsed with light. And then I watched humanity. A young species. A weak species. A species that everyone else ignored or laughed at. But when I called out, when I asked the universe to send me someone curious enough to listen, it was a human who answered. She paused. I called out for 10 years. Thousands of beings walked past my docking bay. Velix merchants. Gorvathi soldiers. Scientists from a dozen species. None of them stopped. None of them felt the call. Only Park Do-hyun, a mechanic with 12 credits to his name, stopped to wonder what was inside the garbage ship. Do-hyun looked out at the council. He saw fear in their eyes now. Real fear. The inheritance belongs to those who earned it, Haewon concluded. And Park Do-hyun earned it with 10 credits and the courage to listen. If you threaten him, you threaten me. And I promise you, that would be a very serious mistake. Warlord Fen slowly sat back down. Ambassador Crix was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice much softer than before. What do you want from us? Do-hyun stepped forward. His hands were not shaking anymore. Nothing, he said. We want nothing from you, but we have something to give. Haewon carries the knowledge of the precursors. Medicine, technology, science beyond anything you have ever seen. And we are going to share it. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Share it? Crix asked. With who? Do-hyun smiled. With everyone. Do-hyun returned to Earth as a hero, but he did not feel like one. The news feeds called him the chosen one, the man who found the precursor ship, the human who stood before the Galactic Council and made them afraid. Politicians wanted to meet him. Corporations offered him billions of credits. Military leaders asked him to share the weapon technology first. Do-hyun said no to all of them. He was still just a mechanic. A man who got lucky. The real work, he understood, belonged to others. So instead of keeping Hawan's knowledge for himself, he did something the galaxy never expected. He gave it away, not to governments, not to companies, not to militaries. He gave it to people. Doctors and engineers and teachers and farmers. Scientists who worked in small laboratories. Students who dreamed of changing the world. Anyone who wanted to learn, anyone who promised to help others, received access to the precursor archives. Haewon helped him organize everything. She created open networks that anyone could access. She translated complex scientific concepts into simple lessons. She answered questions patiently, whether they came from university professors or children in elementary schools. Why are you doing this? She asked Do-hyun one night. They were orbiting Earth, watching the lights of cities twinkle below. You could be rich beyond imagination. You could be the most powerful human in history. Instead, you give everything away for free. Do-hyun thought about the question carefully. When I was young, he said, my grandmother used to make a special soup. It was her secret recipe. She spent years perfecting it. And every winter, when people in our neighborhood got sick, she would make big pots of soup and give them to everyone. She never charged money. She never kept the recipe secret. He smiled at the memory. I asked her once why she did not sell the soup. She could have made a lot of money. She just laughed and said, good things are meant to be shared. That is how they become great things. I never forgot that. Hawan was quiet for a moment. Then her lights pulsed warmly. Your grandmother was very wise. I think my creators would have liked her. Humanity changed faster than anyone could have predicted. Within 1 year, cancer was curable. A simple treatment based on precursor medical knowledge could repair damaged cells and stop tumors from growing. Doctors around the world learned the technique. Hospitals that once sent patients home to die now sent them home healthy. Within 5 years, Earth itself began to heal. New energy systems replaced 30 power plants. Clean fusion reactors provided electricity without pollution. The oceans, once choked with plastic and poison, started to clear. Forests that had been dying began to grow again. Within 10 years, humans built their own starships. Not copies of Hawan, but new designs. Human designs. Engineers took the precursor knowledge and improved it. Scientists discovered things that even the first civilization had not imagined. Humanity was not just learning from the past. They were creating the future, and they were doing something else. Something that confused the galaxy completely. They were sharing. The Velix homeworld suffered from a terrible plague. It had killed millions over the centuries, and their doctors had never found a cure. Human medical teams arrived with treatments and supplies. They asked for nothing in return. They just helped. The Gorvathi colonies on the outer rim were running out of energy. Their old power plants were failing. Human engineers came with clean reactors and the knowledge to build more. They did not demand payment or political favors. They just helped. Species that had once laughed at humanity now stared in confusion. This was not how the galaxy worked. Power was meant to be hoarded. Advantages were meant to be kept secret. Nobody shared technology with their rivals. Nobody helped their enemies, but humans did. Ambassador Crix came to Earth for a diplomatic visit. He walked through hospitals where Velix patients received free treatment. He toured power plants that humans had built for alien colonies. He met scientists who shared their discoveries openly with anyone who asked. Finally, he found Do Yun in a small workshop near Seoul. The man who had changed the galaxy was still fixing old engines in his spare time. His hands were covered in grease. His clothes were simple and worn. I do not understand, Crix said. His forearms hung at his sides in a gesture of complete confusion. We treated you as lesser beings. We mocked you. We threatened to destroy your planet. Why do you give us your gifts? Why do you help us? Do-hyun wiped his hands on a rag and thought about the question. When I was a child, he said, I found a stray dog on the street. It was scared and hungry. It had been hurt by someone, and it tried to bite me when I reached for it. But I gave it food anyway. I gave it shelter. I was patient with it. He looked at the ambassador. After a while, the dog stopped being afraid. It stopped trying to bite. It became my friend. My family's friend. It lived with us for 15 years. Crix tilted his head. You are saying we are like your stray dog? Do-hyun laughed. No, I am saying that when you find something good, you pass it on. That is what you do. That is how things get better. Not by holding on to power, but by sharing it. Not by making enemies, but by making friends. He stood up and offered his greasy hand to the ambassador. We were hurt too. We were mocked and threatened. We could be angry. We could try to get revenge. But that would just create more hurt, more anger, more fear. Instead, we choose to be kind. We choose to help. And we hope that someday, you will choose the same. Crix looked at the offered hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached out with one of his forearms and shook it. Perhaps, he said quietly, we have much to learn from humans after all. Do-hyun smiled. We all have much to learn from each other. That is the point. Outside, The sun was setting over Seoul, and across the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds, humans and aliens were working together for the first time in history. The age of competition was ending. The age of cooperation was just beginning. 50 years had passed since a broke mechanic bought a garbage ship for 10 credits. Park Do-yoon was an old man now. His hair was white. His face was lined with wrinkles. His hands, once strong enough to repair starship engines, now shook slightly when he held his morning tea. He lived on a small farm outside Bizen, the city where he was born. The farm was nothing special. A simple house, a vegetable garden, a few fruit trees. He could have lived in a palace if he wanted. Governments and corporations had offered him everything. But Do-yoon preferred the quiet life. He liked to sit on his porch in the evenings and watch the sky. The sky was different now. 50 years ago, humans had looked up and seen only stars. Now they saw ships. Thousands of ships. Human vessels traveling to distant worlds. Velix traders carrying goods between planets. Gorvathy explorers searching for new frontiers. The galaxy was busier than ever before. And it was peaceful. Not completely peaceful, of course. There were still disagreements. Still arguments. Still problems that needed solving. But the great wars of the past had ended. Species that once fought for territory now shared resources. Governments that once competed for power now cooperated for progress. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had changed it. Hawan still visited sometimes. She would appear in the night sky like a second moon, her silver hull glowing softly. She was famous now, the most recognizable ship in the galaxy. But she still preferred talking to Do-yoon more than anyone else. One evening, she came with news. "I have finished," she said. Her voice spoke directly into Do-yoon's mind, as it always did. "The final archive is decoded." Do-yoon sipped his tea. It was getting cold. "The final archive? I thought you had shared everything years ago." "Almost everything. There was one file that was locked, encrypted in a way I could not break. My creators designed it to open only when certain conditions were met." "What conditions?" Hawan's lights pulsed in a pattern that Do-yoon had learned to recognize as thoughtfulness. "The archive would only open when the species I chose proved worthy of it. When they showed that they understood the most important lesson. My creators wanted to be sure." Do-yoon smiled. "And humanity proved worthy? You shared power instead of hoarding it. You helped enemies instead of destroying them. You chose kindness when revenge would have been easier." "Yes, Park Do-yoon. Humanity proved worthy." She paused. "The archive contains a message. From my creators. For whoever passed the test." Do-yoon set down his tea. Despite his age, despite everything he had seen, he felt a small spark of excitement in his chest. The same curiosity that had driven him into that docking bay 50 years ago. "What does it say?" Hawan was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer than he had ever heard it. "It says, we are gone, but we were not the first. Others came before us, and others will come after. The universe is vast and old and strange, and it does not care if you survive. But you can choose to care for each other. That is the only immortality that matters." When a species learns this lesson, truly learns it, they are ready to join the greater community. They are ready to meet us among the stars. Do-yoon sat in silence for a while. The night was quiet. Crickets sang in the grass. A gentle breeze moved through the fruit trees. "Meet them among the stars," he repeated. "So the precursors are still out there somewhere? Perhaps. Or perhaps they have become something different. Something beyond physical form. The message does not say, but it does give coordinates. A place to find answers. How far? Very far. Beyond the edge of the known galaxy. The journey would take years, even with the fastest ships we have now. Dahin looked up at the sky. He thought about all the places he had never seen, all the wonders he had never witnessed. He was old now, too old for long journeys, too old for great adventures, but others were not. The young ones will go, he said. The next generation. They will find the precursors. They will discover what lies beyond. Yes, Hewan agreed. They will, because of what you started. Dahem laughed softly. I did not start anything. I just bought a cheap ship. You listened when no one else would. You shared when everyone else would have taken. You showed the galaxy what humanity could be. That is how things change. One small choice at a time. One person at a time. She paused. I am very glad I waited for you, Park Do-hyun. Do-hyun felt tears in his eyes. He did not try to hide them. I am glad too, Hewan. I am glad too. They sat together in comfortable silence. An old man and an ancient ship. Two friends watching the stars. Somewhere far away, the children of Earth were already preparing. Young explorers eager to push further than anyone had ever gone. Scientists who wanted to solve the greatest mysteries. Dreamers who looked at the unknown and saw not fear but possibility. They would carry humanity's message to the edge of everything. They would find the precursors, or whatever the precursors had become. And they would prove, once again, that the youngest species in the galaxy was also the one that never stopped reaching for more. Park Do-hyun finished his tea and smiled. The journey was just beginning, and somewhere, impossibly far away, beyond the reach of any telescope or sensor, something ancient stirred. It felt the approach of a curious species. A species that had learned to share. A species that had chosen kindness over conquest. The precursors had waited for a very long time, and now, at last, their children were coming home.